Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the man of the hour. Jeffrey T. Sammons is a professor in the Department of History at New York University, where he has taught since 1989, and in 1987, Sammons was named the Henry Rutgers Research Fellow at Rutgers University, Camden, and completed his critically acclaimed Beyond the Ring role of boxing in American society in 2001. Sammons was awarded a fellowship by the Schomburg Center of Research in Black Culture, and soon after received a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship for 2002-2003 in support of Harlem's Rattlers and the Great War. Sammons is a native of Bridgeton, New Jersey, earned his bachelor's in history at Rutgers College, where he graduated magna cum laude and elected to Phi Beta Kappa in 1971. He earned a master's degree in history from Tufts University in 1974 and a PhD in American history in 1982. In 1983-84, he was a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cape Town. After his return from South Africa, Sammons became involved in the anti-apartheid movement and played an important role in the City of Houston's disinvestment campaign. Sammons continued his community service as a director of a charity golf event for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, as a board member of the Clearview Legacy Foundation, a Black-funded, owned, and operated golf course on the National Historic Registry in East Canton, Ohio, as an advisor on historical and diversity matters in the Professional Golfers Association of America, as a member of the Museum of Library Committee of the United States Golf Association, and as a member of the USGA PGA African American Golf Archive Working Group. Sammons has written widely on the subject of sport and race and has participated and consulted on numerous documentary projects with independent filmmakers as well as large television networks. He is now deeply involved in efforts to collect, preserve, and represent that which relates to the African American experiences in golf, and will write his next book on the subject. Sammons has served on the editorial board of the Journal of Sport History and as an assistant editor of Sport and Social Issues. He has also taught at Princeton University and at Hollings College, Roanoke, Virginia, as a Jessie Ball DuPont Scholar. Welcome to our stage. Please make yourself comfortable. Now, before you begin,
yes,
you're not going to be but so long, right? Because we want to have time for that conversation.
sure.
Okay. All right. And then at that time, after you've done this, I'm going to introduce your conversation partner.
Okay.
Okay? Roger Green.
Have to listen to the women.
Got that right.
I should have given her the short version of the resume so that we could have more time for the discussion. But in any event, I want to thank the Adelaide Sanford Institute, Dr. Linda K. Patterson, for coming up with the idea for this event, and for the support of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College, headed by Dr. Brenda Green and by Clarence Reynolds, who have been of great help to me. I'd also like to thank Roger Green, who has actually completed the monumental task of reading this book and lost a lot of sleep last night as a result. All right, let me move on to a brief introduction to Harlem's Rattlers and the Great War. I'd like to begin first by reading from something that William Pickens wrote. William Pickens was a scholar, an activist with the NAACP in the early 1900s. And this is what William Pickens says about blacks and the First World War. We tend to overlook the First World War as an important event in the African American experience. We think about the Civil Rights Movement, we sort of tie it to Brown v. Board of Education as if 1954 is the start of the Civil Rights Movement, or Rosa Parks' refusal to leave her seat on the bus, or maybe even tie it to World War II. But we don't think about World War I as an important event in the history of African Americans. Here's what Pickens had to say about that. What the war made clear to all, especially blacks, was that character is more fundamental than reputation. Just think of that. Character is more fundamental than reputation. What does that mean? It means to me that reputation is something that is imposed from the outside, and that character is what comes from within. And one lesson I would like for you to take away tonight from this event is that black people need not worry so much about what others think about them, say about them, do to them. It's what we feel about ourselves that is really important. And I'm going to say one thing that I have found as a result of writing this book, and that is that we are one great people. To have survived, to have thrived, considering all that we have endured and continue to endure. Now, I should also say, I did that at the Harvard Club, and I left it there. But we can't do it alone. We've always needed white friends. Frederick Douglass needed white friends. We needed white friends in the Civil Rights Movement, and we need white friends today. And as General Nathaniel James, who was a commander of the 369th Regiment, is with us. General James, will you stand up, as he well knows? And he's with his lovely wife, who has been a stalwart in terms of the Historical Society, which General James heads, as well as the Veterans Association. Mrs. James, will you please stand? Thank you. I'm honored that they are here this evening. But General James knows how important Hamilton Fish III was to the success of the 369th, especially after the war. And he's a charter member of the Veterans Association. And his son, Hamilton Fish IV, who was a 13-term congressman, as was his father, was very instrumental in the establishment of congressional approval of the 369th Veterans Association. But back to William Pickens. Pickens said that World War I showed clearly that blacks had become from a most undesirable element to the most reliable element in America, as symbolized and recognized by the calling out of the National Guard troops to protect the White House. The war had allowed blacks from Africa and America the opportunity to make their first great record as a modern